part 2 of the Beading Chain 101 course, and we're going to be making some earrings today. Now, your beading chain details about where to get them, where to get your beading chain, and your supplies that I'm using are all very much detailed in the first video, Beading Chain 101 part 1. So if you are so inclined, go ahead and watch that video so that you can get all the details. I would like to just proceed ahead without spending a lot of time explaining everything. I will say that you can get your beading chain at budgetbeadbox.com, and you can also search for beading chain on the web if you cannot get it from Budget Beadbox. So let's go ahead and get started on some earring projects and have a good time. Make some earrings. Okay, for this first earring project, we're going to get really creative, and we're going to use a wire guardian to make this earring to have this effect like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit bigger wire guardian. Normally when you order wire guardians, you get this little tiny guy like this. So this isn't big enough. First of all, it's too steep for the chain to wrap around without breaking the links, and the chain doesn't often fit through the hole. Sometimes you can get it to do it, but most of the time it does not. So these little wire guardians will not work. They work really good for bead weaving, for needles and thread. However, you need a bigger wire guardian to run the chain through. This wire guardian I got at BuyerMountainGems.com, and you can get them in different tones. You just want to put in a search for a wire guardian and then look at the descriptions and make sure they have a 1mm hole. So the hole in the wire guardian is 1mm. And because it has a 1mm hole, it's going to be a bigger wire guardian. So it's got a bigger arch and the chain will go around it better. So the main thing in your search is to look for a 1mm hole. Now, you can probably find them at other places besides just FireMountainGems.com, but when you order, make sure to read the description, find a wire guardian with a 1mm hole, and you should be fine. Now, what I do with this is I take my wire guardian and I just slide a piece of chain. I've cut 2 pieces of chain 5 inches long. So I can then doctor them up however I want. If I want it to be a graduated look, I can cut one a little shorter or whatever. But this way, it just gives me enough wire to or chain to work with. You can cut them any length you want. You can make them long, you can make them short. It's up to you. Now I'm going to take my chain and I'm going to run it through the wire guardian. So I'm just going to put this through. And I'm going to pull it through quite a bit so that I have a nice length to work with. And then I'm going to slide it through the other side of the wire guardian. And just pull it through. Make sure it doesn't twist, and pull them straight down into that wire guardian. Now, I'm not worried about the lengths on either side because I'm going to cut mine to make them match, or to have them be the length that I want them to be. So pull it down until it pops into the arch of the wire guardian. Now if it continues to want to pop out, you can open your wire guardian a little bit in order to keep it from popping out. The wider the wire guardian arch is, the less it's going to pop out. But it's easy to distort them, so I like to just hold it like this. And then before, I was taking a size 1 crimp tube, sliding it up and crimping one on the end to make them stay in place. And you can do that. You can pop a little size 1 crimp tube on your chain and crimp each side off. Or you can take your crimping tool and just put it to the very end of your wire guardian and squeeze. and then go the other direction and squeeze again so that it is nice and round and tight against your wire. Now that side is secure. Let me get you a little closer for this one. Let's see if I can rearrange my camera some. There we go. And I'm going to go to this side, make sure my wire is down tight in my wire guardian, and I'm just going to I'm using just the first divot. I'm not using the second divot because I don't want to crush it. I just want to tighten it. So I'm using the first round divot on my tool. I'm going towards the very end of my wire guardian and I'm squeezing. And then I turn and squeeze again. And then just make sure your wire is down tight, or your chain is down tight, and that's how that looks. If you're going to get more movement, then you have to squeeze it a little bit more. So if it wants to pop out, you squeeze it just a little bit more. Mine is actually pretty stable, but I'm just going to make sure that they're nice and tight. There. And now I can do that with the other one. I've already got one prepared, and I can lay them side by side. And I can cut my chains to match. So I'm just going to put this one here, this one here. You can lay them on top of each other, however it works well for you. But I just want to make sure that my two chains match. So I'm going to do these two first. And they don't have to be exact, but you want them to be pretty close. And then I'm going to turn it over. Turn this one over. And put these two chains together. Get them as close as I can. And cut these. So I want one side a little shorter than the other, just so I have kind of a staggered, pretty look. And now I have a really pretty little wire guardian mount for my earrings. And I can just squeeze it in a little bit so that it stays on my ear wire better. And then I can start to decorate them. So I'm going to use some little 4mm cubes. These are just Chinese crystal cubes. And I am going to put on a little spacer bead, and I'm going to use a size 1 bead along crimp bead. And I'm going to slide a couple beads on here. So I think I just want to put the cube on the end, drop it down a little bit, then I'll put on the spacer bead, drop it down, and then I'm going to grab one of my crimp tubes in my flat nose pliers, and I'm just going to slide that crimp tube right on the end of my wire. Sometimes it's easier to pick it up first, and sometimes it's not. So let's see if I can pick it up with my chain a little bit better. There we go. And then I'm just going to grab my flat nose pliers while I'm holding it down here on my bead mat. I'm going to move it forward to the end of the chain and squeeze, leaving a little bit of chain hanging out. And then you can cut that off a little bit if you'd like, or you can just leave it on there. And so I have one side done on my earring. Now I can go ahead and do the other side the same way. I can put a couple of cubes on it, which I think I'll do. I don't have quite enough out, but I can get some more out to make my other one match. But I think I'll put 2 cubes on this side. So I'm going to drop these little cubes down. And then I am going to grab, oh, I need a spacer bead. Put on a spacer bead. These are so tiny, and the chain is so floppy, it takes a minute to actually get your beads on your chain. And sometimes you have to cut the chain again because the end is a little scraggly and it doesn't want to go through very well, and I think that's the issue I'm having here. So I'm going to cut my chain just a tiny bit, see if that helps. Yeah, that helped. And then I'm going to pick up my crimp tube. Oh, come on. Get on there. This really isn't this hard, I promise you. And then I'm just going to bring it to the end of the chain, leave a little bit hang out, and just crimp like this. Make sure you get it on there securely. And then I think I will just trim these just slightly. You want to leave a little bit hanging out just so that the crimp tube doesn't slip off. And that's what that one looks like. I'm going to go ahead and put an ear wire on it, and then I'll make the other one off camera and show you the set. I'm going to just open my ear wire. Now you could take a tiny little jump ring and put it on there too, but the ear wire loops are small, so it has a tendency to stay on there really nice without slipping off too badly. And you can close this a little bit more, and then you have this really pretty slinky earring. I think they turn out really nice. I'll show you. Oops, 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 twisty, twisty. That's what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and make the other one, and I'll show you the set. The finished set. They don't look very pretty laying on the bead mat, but when you pick them up, they do. And they're really pretty. So I was working on a silver set, and I decided to show you how to use a size 2 crimp tube on here instead of a size 1. So I've put on my pearl. I'm going to slide it down, and then I am going to put on a size 2 crimp tube. And I'm going to grab my crimping tool, and in the second divot closest to the handle, I'm going to grab a hold of this crimp tube. Let me get you a little closer. And once I've grabbed a hold of it in the second divot on my tool, I'm going to move it towards the end of my chain and just squeeze it. So now this is what I have. I have a little fold in my crimp tube. I'm going to place it now sideways in the first divot of my crimping tool, and I'm going to squeeze. Now you can see how that draws that together. And then I like to, when I'm putting it on bead chain, just go around and kind of shape the crimp tube and reduce the size of it so that it is really tight against my chain, and just make it nice and pretty and tube shaped. And this is what you end up with. And then you can just cut down the end a little bit and drop the pearl down, and that's what that looks like. And then I'm going to put another little pearl on the other side. Now that didn't cut very pretty. See if I can do that better. And then I'll have a nice little set. And I'll come back and show you what it looks like. But I just wanted you to see that that's what you can do with that if you want to use a size 2. And here's the silver pair with the size 2 at the bottom, and I cut the chain real short to it because those are more secure. I could do that, and I think it makes a really nice aesthetic. It's tube shaped, so it's quite pretty. So that's how you can make a pair of earrings with a wire guardian. And like I said, you can make them as long or as short as you'd like, as dramatic as you'd like. You can put as many beads as you want. You can put any type of beads, any type of crystals, whatever you'd like on these, and they turn out really pretty. I'm going to show you a pair that I made earlier that I actually put some crimp beads up at the top. So here's a pair I made. And before I had discovered that I could crimp these closed, I was sliding up some little crimp beads and then just crimping them on so that I could secure everything. Now, it's not that bad of an aesthetic, but I think this looks better. It's more seamless. It just looks better. However, if you have a wire guardian that doesn't want to crimp well, if it crushes, if it's just not working that well, you can do this also. Just put on your chain, slide up a couple crimp tubes, hold your chain in place, and crimp them down. Otherwise, just use your crimping tool on the first divot. Do not put it in the second divot and crush it. Just put it in the first divot, go around it and tighten it, and it works out pretty darn well. So that's the first pair. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make just a one chain drop. I've got these really pretty 6mm cubes, and I want to use them for just a nice little focal on just a dramatic one chain drop. So I'm using these little crimp tubes with a loop. You can get these at jewelrysupply.com. This is the item number, and you can use these to just mount your chain and then slide the loop on to your ear wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of these guys here, and I'm going to place it in my crimping plier, or my crimping tool. And when I place it in my crimping tool, I like to have it on the flat side. So this is curved. I have the loop on the curved side, and I have the opening of the crimp tube on the flat side. That way I can adjust it. I want it to be flush or just slightly recessed so that I'm crimping towards the end of the crimp tube and not up where the loop is, because you can break the loop if you do that and destroy your crimp tube. So then I'm just going to place this wire or this chain right inside here and center it, and then I'm going to squeeze. And now I have a fold in the crimp tube, and then I'm going to, I didn't do a very good job centering it, but that's alright. I'm going to turn this tube sideways in my crimping tool, still staying down towards the end of my crimp tube, like this, and I'm going to put it in the first divot and squeeze. And now I have a crimp tube and a loop around my chain. Now, the end of it can be a little boxy sometimes. I didn't do the best job crimping this one. So you can use the first divot in your crimping tool, go down towards the bottom, and just kind of doctor it up, squeeze it a little bit, and turn it in there and just adjust it a little bit. Now you've got something that looks like this. And you can just then put your bead on the bottom. So I think I'm going to use a size 2 crimp tube, and let's see if I can find one. It's a size 3. Here's some size 2 crimp tubes, and I'm going to perhaps, let's see how big this hole is. I should be fine. I'm just going to put the cube on. I'm not going to put any spacer beads or anything else. I just want the cube on. Oops, let's put it on the one I'm doing. Geez, Gina. Put it on here. And you can just drop it down as far as you want. And then I'm just going to grab one of my crimp tubes. I'm going to put it on my chain and then pick it up with my crimp tool and then adjust until I grab it with the second hole, drag it down to the end of my chain, just like this. I hope I'm in camera. And then once I get it to the end of my chain, I'm going to squeeze. And then I'm just going to look for the fold in my crimp tube, place it center in the first divot, and place the two sides of my crimp tube on either side of the crimp tool like this, and then squeeze again. And then with this, I'm going to definitely go around, reduce and tighten this crimp tube around that chain really well so that it looks pretty and it's very secure. And then I can just cut this end off like this. And then I can just place this on an ear wire. And now I have a very dramatic drop, which is quite pretty. You can make this as long or as short as you'd like. This one's pretty long, but you can make them, like I said, any length you want. I think that's really pretty. So that's how you make that. I will make the other one, and at the end I'll show you the pairs so that you can see what they all look like together. Okay, so let's say we want to make a double strand in one of our little loops here. This is a 1mm hole. This is 0.6mm chain, so I can put two of them in this hole. You have to make sure that you have a crimp that's big enough to hold two. And then what you're going to do is I've cut two pieces of about 2 inches long. You can make them any length you want of chain, and then I'm just going to put them side by side. And I've cut a gold and a silver just to make it a little bit different. And of course you don't have to use two colors, it doesn't matter. And then you just grab a hold of your little crimp tube, and it takes a little bit of manipulation, but you can put both of these chains inside this crimp tube. Sometimes you have to cut your chain again because the ends are a little straggly. And usually, I can just put these right in here, but of course I'm on camera, so that's not happening. But they will go in there, I promise. Just keep working at it. Once you get them in there, then you have to really shove to get them to go to the end of the tube. And I'm trying to lay them side by side. I don't want them on top of each other. So there, see, that went pretty simple there. It takes a little bit of manipulation sometimes, and sometimes it goes right in. It just depends. Then you're going to take your crimping tool and you're going to place it again in the second divot closest to the end of the crimping tube. You don't want it right towards the top. You want it at the end and a little recessed like this, and then just squeeze. Now I have both of my chains in here side by side, and you can see the little fold. And then I can put it in this way, in the first divot sideways, towards the end of the crimp tube, and just lightly squeeze it together. Don't squeeze it to death because you don't need to. It's pretty secure with the two chains in when you crimp it the first time. But the second time draws it together and makes it a little bit tighter. So now I have two pieces of chain in here, and I can just put an ear wire on here, or I can decorate the ends of it and have another really pretty earring. So I'm just going to leave these like this, and I'm going to make sure that the ends of my chain are cut really pretty and flush. They don't look too bad. So I'm just going to leave it like this. Now, if they were not even, or if the ends were really straggly, I'd go ahead and cut them, but this isn't bad. So then I'll just slide an ear wire on there and make the other one, and we'll have another set of earrings. Okay, so I wanted to show you, I went ahead and dressed up the bottom. I just put on a little 3mm spacer bead, and I put a gold one on the silver with a gold number 2 crimp tube, and then a silver on the gold with a number 2 crimp tube, and it dressed them up really cute. They turned out really cute. So then I just put an ear wire on, and I have a really cute pair of earrings. So that's another pair you can make. So I am going to make this little hoop type earring here with a porcelain bead on it. I have these pretty little porcelain beads, so I thought I would use them. Actually, they're pretty big. But you can use a smaller bead. You can use a couple beads to do this. However you want to do it. Just slide a bead on your chain. I've cut my chain 2.5 inches long. This time I'm going to use one of these findings that Shirley has on her website. This is a longer crimp tube but it has a little tiny hole, and that's the one thing I don't like about it. You have to be able to slide a jump ring through there or your ear wire through there. However, the ear wire does fit, so I'm going to go ahead and use it and show you how I use these longer tubes here. So put your bead on your piece of chain and center it, and then bring your two ends together. Just like that, side by side, and then slide your binding on it, your crimp tube, and try to hold your chain down low so that you can actually get that on there all the way, like this. And then I just make sure my hole is facing me, and it's not sideways or something. And then I grab with my crimp pliers in the second divot towards the bottom of the crimp tube, and then just squeeze. And this is what you have. You have just a little crimp fold at the bottom of the tube here. And then you can go into your first divot and just lightly squeeze. If you squeeze too hard, you'll really distort it. So you want to just squeeze lightly to where it's on there nice and firm. And then you have this really pretty seamless look on the earring here. And then you can just open your ear wire. Let me find another ear wire because I wasn't smart enough to get one out. No. That would be too easy. And I'm just going to open it, and I'm going to slide this on. And you can see these little holes can be a real pain in the rear end to work with. Come on, go on there. It went on the other one. There we go. Now it's dropping down. And come on. There you have it. Of course, my other one worked a lot easier than this one because, you know, it can't just work nice when you're on camera. So there you have it. And that's how that looks. And here's the match. This one moves a little bit easier on there. So I think sometimes these holes are a little bit bigger than other times. You could always put like a bead reamer or something in there and kind of pry it open a little bit more, I guess. But that's what that looks like. And Shirley has these available on her website at budgetbeadbox.com. She sent me these. I generally like these better, and you can do this with these. I've made a couple and I'll show you them, but it's a little bit harder to get the chains in and hold them together than it is on this one, but it can be done. I've done it several times and it works out just fine too. So if you only have this, then don't worry about these, or if you want to get these instead of this, you can do that too. You can also use these at the end of a necklace chain, or you can use them pretty much anywhere I've shown you to use these. So that's what that looks like. And I think I'll make another pair with a crystal or something. And here's a couple other pairs that I made with the beading chain. This one I made the the hoops just a little bit bigger by cutting more chain. So this is like 3.5 inches of chain. And then with these, I used megatamas, and I put the megatamas on in a particular direction because they lay certain ways together. So I put them so that they'd feather out this way. I put a crimp bead on top here, a crimp bead on top there, or on the bottom there to stabilize it. And then I put another metal bead, a crimp bead, a metal bead, and a crimp bead, and then I folded them in half and crimped them in one of these. So you can see that these work fine too. And I also used this type of loop for this pair. And so you can get creative, use all kinds of different kinds of beads, and make all kinds of really pretty pairs of earrings doing this. So that's just a few ideas for you. And I will lay out what we've made today, show them to you, and we'll call it good. And here they are, the ones that I've made today. And I have a whole lot of examples of others that I've made too. I have these that I've made, and these. So there are just endless possibilities to these particular style of earrings. You can get really creative and do all kinds of really fun things. So anyway, oh, and here's another example here. Anyway, that is what you can do with beading chain making earrings, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.